Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Tier 2 Talk, the Australia Championship. My name is Kim McKenna. I am your host for this episode, and it is a pleasure to be back with you here at the start of June, end of May, to recap all the NPL action that has been happening across Australia. Hope you all have been doing well. Hope you all have been staying safe. We've reached the halfway point in this year's NPL competitions. NPL Victoria, NPL New South Wales are very close in their premiership race, relegation battles for some teams, but also there is a lot of football to unpack, so we're happy to be back to uncap everything that is going on. If you haven't already, please make sure you follow here on Spotify. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, press the follow button on there, and then if you want more from us, follow us on Instagram or Twitter. That's where we do a lot of daily content, and especially with the World Cup coming up, we'll be taking a tune away from NPL action and focusing on the global tournament that is the World Cup. What do we have in store for you today? We have a very big episode, so I won't waste too much time on the introduction. We are joined by A-League and NPL New South Wales commentator Cody Ojeda. He runs the Common Football fan page on Instagram. He's helping us break down the FIFA World Cup and joining us for our special segment later in the episode. So we'll get to him, and it's a very long but very in-depth interview with him, and we talk everything about the Socceroos and their chances in the World Cup. We're also going to do our May recap for the 8 Australia Championship Foundation clubs like we do every month, see what they've been doing. And then we also have to mention the news that's been going on in South Melbourne over the past week. They've had managerial changes. They're apparently talking to the Australian professional leagues who run the A-leagues. A lot of rumours, and we'll kind of talk about that and what it could mean for the Hellers. So, nevertheless, that's a short intro, and we're going to jump straight into it because, as I said, we want to get to that World Cup breakdown at the end of the episode. So let's jump into what the Preston Lions have been doing, and it was a close month and a tight month for Preston in May, with all their games ending 1-0. They were on the winning side of those encounters 3 out of 5 times, with losses coming against Oakley Cannons and Altona Magic. They have the best defence in the league, having only conceded 13 goals to this point. Preston, they're 2 points behind South Melbourne in 6th and 13 off the league title. Now also, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, they did have the 6-point reduction at the start of the season from Football Victoria, so if they didn't have that, they'd already be in the top 6, but they're still in a very good position, Preston, at this halfway point to play finals football. Once again, they made the, I want to say, semi-finals last year of NPL Victoria, so they're tracking good to potentially make the finals once again. For Avondale, the attack has been on fire for the Avengers throughout May. 18 goals scored across 5 games, the best attack in the league, and averaged more than 2 goals a game. Bruno Fornaroli, their star from the A-League, leads the Golden Boot race in NPL Victoria, 13 goals in 15 games. They've won 4 out of their 5 games, with their only blemish being against third place Hume City, who only sit 2 points above them, and they're 5 points off Oakley in first. So Avondale are probably the team, the Australia Championship Foundation team, that is most likely to push for the NPL Victoria Premiership. They're trying to defend their premiership that they won in a very close race against Heidelberg last year. Oakley have been a surprise to this point. So it goes Oakley first, Heidelberg second, and then Avondale. 5 points of difference, so still not a lot in that race, and I'm sure it will heat up, especially in that second half of the season where all those teams still have to play once again. And look at South Melbourne. South's focus on the NPL did waver during May, with the closing stages of the OFC Pro League taking priority for the side. They did lose that OFC Pro League last weekend not last weekend, but the weekend before, to Auckland FC. So they went down in the OFC Pro League final there. In NPL, it wasn't a pretty picture for South. They only picked up a single point, being the weekend just gone in a 1-1 draw against Hume City, where most of those OFC Pro League players did come back into the fold. Other than that, it was a very young, under-23-like squad for South Melbourne. It was a rough month for the Hellers in NPL Victoria. Multiple 4-0 defeats at the hands of Avondale, Caroline, Spring, George Cross, and Heidelberg. They do remain inside the top 6, which I think is a remarkable achievement considering their the splitment of the two squads. So the fact they're still in the top 6 is in a very good position. Like I said, though, they do have Preston just 2 points behind them. So they'll have to start picking up wins and results now that OFC Pro League is done and they can focus solely on the NPL Victoria. And they're 11 points off Oakley in first. So I think for South, it's very much, yes, not impossible to catch down Oakley, but, just making sure they're playing finals football, it would be their priority in the second half of the season. Now, moving on to NPL New South Wales, and we start with Sydney United. And Sydney United remain in the premiership race, though they have slipped up multiple times throughout May, only winning 2 out of their 5 games. Back-to-back defeats to Sutherland and UNSW mean United are 2 points behind Apia and Marconi, and they're sitting third on 37 points. There was a lot of opportunities. We'll talk more about Marconi and Apia in just a second as well, but the premiership race in New South Wales is very tight. You've got Apia, Marconi on 39 and Sydney United on 37. And a lot of these teams have slipped up over the last few weeks to, miss out on chances to go to that top of the league. Sydney United have slipped a little bit. They've lost 3 games now after that 11-game undefeated start. That Sutherland game was a hard-fought loss, but the surprise one was UNSW. Just never really clicked on that day, and UNS made them punish. I think it was a 2-0 defeat there. So definitely still in it, Sydney United, but they have slipped along the way, but that's, common in football, especially after their fantastic start. It was always going to, teeter at some point in the season. But yeah, still on good track. Moving over to their crosstown rivals in Marconi Stallions, Marconi have climbed from 3rd to the top of the table throughout May after an undefeated month. 3 wins and 2 draws, the Stallions have capitalised on Apia and United's mistakes and dropped points. They nearly beat Apia a fortnight ago before conceding late on to split the points in the Derby d'Italia. They have the best defence in the league and have only conceded 14 goals across 17 games, and I think that's a big thing for Marconi. They have a very strong defense line headlined by Anton Milinaric, who we had on the show at the end of last year. I want to say vice captain of Marconi. I know Marko Jesic is the main captain, but whenever Marko goes off, it usually falls to Milinaric. But I think that's a really positive for Marconi, is that they do have that strong defense. They're very tough to break down. And, they do have the leading Golden Boot striker in Damien Sekenis up top for Marconi, so they do have this really nice balanced squad. Again, should have beat Apia a fortnight ago. Apia rescued 1 late. If they win there, they're several points clear of Apia and Sydney United. But having already played Apia, you don't have to play them again. They'll play Sydney United at home. And the other positive for Marconi is they have, I think 11 home games in a row or something like that. I don't know if it's exactly 11, but some ridiculously high number, because the first half season, they were away for at least 2 months from the Palace. So the fact that they're sitting top and they have these multiple back-to-back-to-back home games, I think they would be quietly confident about the results they can pick up and the teams they can put down as well, because the Palace is, an intimidating stadium to go to. And I don't have it with me, but I'd love to know Marconi's home stats for this season, because I can't remember from the top of my head them dropping too many games at home so far. So Marconi are set up for a very big year, and we'll see if they can hold on to that top spot throughout the month of June. Flipping it over to the other side of the league table, we have Sydney Olympic. And Sydney Olympic might have a new lease of life in their relegation battle. They've picked up some massive points. 3 points against Blacktown City a fortnight ago has reduced the gap between those two sides to just 5 points. Their game last week against SD Rays was postponed due to weather, and I think the field was waterlogged. However, if they do win that game in hand against SD Raiders, who I think are only a few positions above them in the league table, if they win that one, then the gap between them and Blacktown City, who lost over the weekend, goes to just 2 points. And then they also draw the likes of St. George City and SD Rays closer into the battle for survival, with those teams not too far off in terms of points either from Olympic. I watched the Sydney Olympic and Blacktown game, and I must say there was a lot of heart and a lot of fight in that Olympic team, and they did deserve the win on the day. I think it's just a matter of, putting results together and just getting and grinding out those results. We'll talk about what they did in the Australia Cup, but that was another clear sign of them grinding and getting results and stuff like that. And I think, Michael Mileto, who we had on the podcast last month, he talked to me after the Blacktown City game, and he very much recognized that they're in a relegation battle. He's not trying to shy away from it. He wants to make sure this club stays up, and I'm sure they're doing everything they can to stay up in NPL New South Wales. For the Wollongong Wolves, a shock defeat to UNSW FC last weekend ruined an almost undefeated month for the Wolves. They're 8 points clear of the Sharks in 7th and 8 points behind Marconi, who they play this weekend. So this weekend could be a turning point for the Wolves season and whether they are fighting for the title or a spot in the finals. Now, I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago that they haven't played finals in multiple years. So the fact that they're 8 points clear from the Sharks is a great achievement up until this point, though they know the job is not done. And then, like I said, they play Marconi this weekend at the Palace. And it will be an interesting one because, like I said, if they win, they go 5 points behind Marconi, and then you can definitely say they're right in the mix for the premiership. But if they lose, they're 11 points adrift. Not impossible, but still tough with the way Marconi, Appy, and Sydney United, aren't dropping too many points. So I definitely want to say that, their priority is still be on the premiership, but quietly they'll be eyeing the Sharks and making sure they separate themselves as much as possible between them and the team in 7th. So big weekend ahead for Wollongong Wolves, and we'll see what that results brings for the boys from the South Coast. And then finally, the NPL New South Wales champions, Appia Leichhardt, they rescued a point against Marconi, and away defeat to St. George City are the only blemishes on Appia's record this month. They defeated City United at home, and the Oz Championship quarterfinalists NWS Spirit the weekend just gone to pick up some very crucial points. They're tied on points with Marconi, but a worse goal difference by 6 is the only thing separating the two sides, so it'll be an interesting race to the final match day of the season. Now, still a lot of football to be played. I think we're going into round 18, so we're still got 13 matches to go. However, I don't see a catastrophe of a fall-off between Marconi, Appy, and Sydney United. I think it'll be a close race to the premiership throughout the whole season. And Appy, have shown a lot of fight as well to get that point against Marconi. They look dead and out of the water, but, got something out of it. And most importantly, took 2 points off Marconi rather than gaining 1 point themselves. They still have to play Sydney United as well in the second half of the season. And I think that one is away at Adenza Park. So that will be a tough challenge for Appia. However, I'm sure they'll keep trudging along. And we'll see where this NPL New South Wales race is at come the end of June, because it is definitely exciting and it's definitely going to be one of the closer ones that we've had in recent years. Now, as we do with every podcast and these monthly podcast style episodes, we like to do our nationwide roundup of the other NPL competitions, and we like to see who's leading the race. And especially with the Australia Championship only 4 months away now, we are getting closer to deciding who could be playing in the 2026 iteration of the Australia Championship from the other NPL competitions. And there was a lot of shake-ups from, last time we talked in April to now. I think there was at least 4 teams that have seen themselves end at the top of the table by the end of May, and one of those teams come from NPL Queensland in Peninsula Power. They've won 5 games in a row to chase down Moreton City, and they sit 3 points clear at the top of NPL Queensland, ahead of Lions FC, who they defeated not too long ago. In NPL Northern New South Wales, Broadmeadow Magic, who played in the Australia Championship last year, have overtaken Western Bears, who held that top spot for the last 2 months. An undefeated month and 2 Bears defeats see them 5 points clear at the halfway point in that competition. In NPL New South Wales, Rockdale Illidan have only won 1 game throughout May, but with Spirit also suffering 3 defeats in a row, they've made that gap even further between themselves. Sutherland Sharks are on the rise though, and are the closest competitors, just 3 points adrift of Rockdale, and could potentially claim that spot if they win on the weekend. In NPL Tasmania, South Hobart once again in the championship last year. They're holding on to top spot in that competition. They defeated their biggest premiership rivals in Devonport City a few weeks ago. However, they did draw a fortnight ago and Devonport did win. So the gap between South Hobart and Devonport City is just 1 point. So not much in NPL Tasmania, with those two sides set to play again in the second half of the season. In NPL South Australia, West Torrens is back atop of the league. Playford City, who was at the top when we last talked at the end of April, suffered 3 draws and 1 defeat throughout May, so only picking up 1 win out of their last 5, where West Torrens have picked up 3 wins out of their last 5, though Metro Stars, who made the quarterfinals last year of the Australia Championship, are just sitting 1 point behind West Torrens after an undefeated month of May. So definitely a close race there. You got West Torrens 26, Metro Stars 25, Playford City 22, and Adelaide City on 22 points. So very close race there in NPL South Australia. In Western Australia, we go even further west. Perth Red Star are sitting atop of the NPL Western Australia table and make their first appearance in our nationwide roundup. Undefeated month in May, 2 draws over the last fortnight have brought Olympic Kingsway and Bayswater City back into the fold. Those two sides less than 3 points behind Perth Red Star, though only 1 loss on the season. Perth Red Star are sitting in a comfortable position at the top, though it will also be a close race there as we progress throughout the season. And then finally, the competition has played the least amount of games up until this point in NPL ACT. Canberra Croatia, 1 loss on the season, though are 5 games undefeated and are sitting 3 points clear of Tigers FC. So a lot of familiar names possibly rejoining the Australia Championship. However, there is also a lot of new names that could see them join, and I'm sure after the World Cup we will get heavily into how teams can qualify and what teams can qualify for the Oz Championship. Last bit of football we got to talk about before we mention South Melbourne and their off-field departures was the Australia Cup. It was the 7th and final preliminary round of the Australia Cup, with 5 Oz Championship sides involved in the action. Starting in NPL Victoria with the New Balance Doherty Cup, and Preston Lions defeated Caroline Springs 6-0 to advance to the Australia Cup round of 32 for the first time ever in their history. And last night, Avondale got on the wrong side of a cup set, losing 3-2 to North Sunshine Eagles, who play in Victorian Premier League 1. So a massive upset there for the Avengers, who you thought were locked on to make the Australia Cup, and I believe they made the semi-finals last year. So massive upset there. In New South Wales, Sydney Olympic came from 2 goals down to win 3-2 in a fantastic game against Fraser Park last weekend. Sydney United dismantled Blacktown City 4-0 to make sure they advanced to the next round. And Apia edged out Rockdale 1-0. So Sydney Olympic, Sydney United, and Apia Leichhardt are all heading to the Australia Cup round of 32. And then in the Waratah Cup side of the tournament, they did do the semi-final draws. So we don't know when it's confirmed yet with the fixtures and dates. However, they did do the draw. So Sydney United will play Sydney Olympic in the first semi-final of the Waratah Cup, and Apia Leichhardt will take on SD Raiders in the other semi-final. So an all NPL New South Wales affair in the Waratah Cup, and we'll see if we have an Oz Championship showdown in the Waratah Cup final. With all the recap of May done, we now have to kind of talk about South Melbourne, because there's been a lot of shock news over the last week, headlined by the departure of Sanicha Cohadzic. Hi there. So this is Future Keen, just stepping in to fact check previous Keen. So as I was recording, this episode, I was talking about Sanicha Cohadzic and South Melbourne and the departure. I get off recording the episode and I go into Instagram, and there's a statement from South Melbourne and Sanicha Cohadzic, and it says that Sanicha Cohadzic is back as the South Melbourne head coach. So a complete 180, 360 occurrence at South Melbourne. So I'll quickly read the media statement. Only released 17 minutes ago. South Melbourne confirms that Sanicha Cohadzic has been reinstated as senior men's head coach. While the decision to part ways with Cohadzic last week came as a surprise to some, it created an opportunity for both parties to openly address and resolve a number of important matters. Those discussions were conducted with honesty and professionalism, produced a renewed alignment on the direction of the club with a clear pathway forward for all. South Melbourne and Cohadzic remain united in their shared ambition and commitment to the continued success of the club, the welfare of our players, the love for our fans, and the support of our sponsors. The club's focus is now squarely on the season ahead and the standards we demand of ourselves on and off the pitch, that we move forward as one club, fully focused on the season ahead. Co-presidents of South Melbourne had this to say: the board made a decision that resulted in both parties openly addressing and resolving a number of issues, which has now led to a renewed alignment and a clear path forward for all. Now we ask all South Melbourne family to get behind the team, feel the same, and show the world why this club is like no other. Sanicha Cohadzic said that, "I love this club, I always have. These past few days have been difficult, but what matters is that we move forward together as one club. I'd like to thank the board for working through all the issues, and now I'm ready to get back to work." So, crazy turn of events. And of course, as I'm talking about his sacking, they rehire him. But, how many times has that happened in world football? So, my immediate thoughts are that, Cohadzic is back as manager, the correct move. And by that statement, it shows that there was the initial departure was possibly a Cohadzic move because something was going on behind the scenes, wasn't happy with the board or something. They need to have those sit-down talks about something, but they've obviously resolved them now, and now Cohadzic is back in charge. So, crazy 180 scenario there in South Melbourne, but ultimately the right decision has been made, and Cohadzic is back in charge. So we'll see what that brings for South Melbourne. Not much will change, in terms of players and stuff. It would just be like a little blip, and then things will get back to usual. So that's all for me. We'll get back to the episode, but I literally ended the episode and thought, crap, I have to get back on and, while I've got the chance, reiterate the breaking news. So, yeah, Cohadzic is back in charge of South Melbourne. Bye. And then the other thing that's broke over the last 2 days, I must say, is reports that apparently the Australian Professional League, so the people that run the A-Leagues, are in talks with South Melbourne or had a conversation with South Melbourne. Again, your mind instantly jumps to South Melbourne's joining the A-League. Now, again, this is all Twitter talk, and, the people that said it initially are a very reliable source, so I trust them. That's why I'm bringing it up. Again, no one has confirmed or denied what the conversation was about. There's been rumors going around that apparently APL want $15 million from South to join the A-Leagues. Again, don't know how true that statement is. But definitely interesting times for South Melbourne because, yeah, you lose the OFC Pro League final, then you come back, you get rid of your coach a fortnight ago, and now it talks with the APL. So, interesting, yes, South Melbourne should be in the A-League, and, it helps the A-League and South Melbourne's level, but then you kind of go, well, does that possibly end the push for promotion relegation, or is this the first iteration of the promotion relegation? But if it is promotion relegation, then they shouldn't be paying $15 million to get into the league. So keep an eye on this space. If there's any actual confirmed or very reliable news, you'll see updates on our Instagram or Twitter surrounding these comments. But I thought it was definitely worth noting on the podcast, and just, informing you guys about what's happening with South Melbourne, the Oz Championship winners. But yeah, until there's breaking news, you won't see anything major on the socials and stuff like that. So, with all that said, we've reached about 20 minutes into the episode, and I think that's a good time to jump over to our World Cup preview, our World Cup special segment, joined by Cody Ojeda. We ask all things about Socceroos, their squad selection, the Mexico game, over the weekend, and then we look into what their chances are and what we deem a success or a failure for the Socceroos. So that will pretty much wrap up the NPL talk for this episode, and then I'll catch you after the interview to finish off the episode. So I hope you enjoy our World Cup special segment here on Tier 2 Talk. Welcome back, everybody, and of course, in just over 2 weeks, the biggest football festival does return. The FIFA World Cup, the 23rd edition, comes into life in USA, Mexico, and Canada. And of course, we're taking a U-turn here at Tier 2 Talk to cover the World Cup because it's what everyone's talking about and, of course, what we want to be talking about here. Now, to save you from listening to my voice and just my opinions on the World Cup, we've got a special guest in today, Cody Ojeda. He does NPL commentary. He's done A-League commentary. Does a lot of writing pieces as well. So we get his thought. He covers all things Australian football on the Common Football Fan Instagram page. So Cody, thank you very much for joining us today. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Kane. Appreciate you having me on. It's been a minute since I've been on a podcast. Actually, it feels a little bit weird to get back into it, but excited nonetheless. And World Cup coming up. It's a beautiful time in the 4-year cycle. It's one that I do really enjoy. And unfortunately, as with everyone, life's sort of going to get in the way. You've got work, studies, everything to deal with. But it'll be good to, at least when the times are good, to be able to sit down and watch some high quality international football.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing ignites football fans or really gets them going as the World Cup. And that's, what makes the beauty of it. And especially when, Australia is looking semi-decent going into this one. There's a bit of hope around the Socceroos.
That's what kills you usually, though.
Yes, and that's usually the thing with sports. It's always the hope that kills you, but better have hope than no hope. So, and at least we're there, unlike the Italians.
My wife's Italian, actually.
Oh.
Well, she doesn't really care much for football, to be fair. But I grew up in a very Italian-centric neighborhood, and there was me and 2 other Spanish people in my grade. And every time Italy played Spain, going through high schools, around the time where we kept crossing paths in major tournaments, it was a lot of banter and maybe some towing the line for maybe going a bit too far.
Yeah.
Kept happening, but it was a nice little rivalry we had in high school. There were some days that were better than others. The days that were better were obviously the ones where Spain won.
Yeah.
The 4-0 Euros final is a particularly favourite memory of mine.
Yes.
But I definitely do take, I don't want to say pride, but I do enjoy seeing the Italians struggle.
Yeah. I think there is, a little bit there when you see a big team like that miss out. Like, yes, you want them there as well, but it's always
the best way I can put it. 2018, when they missed the World Cup, was one of the funniest days I've experienced on this earth. I don't remember how many people I took the piss out of, but it was definitely a lot.
Yeah.
When they missed 2022, I genuinely felt bad because I was like, oh my god, like, okay, 1's funny, 2's like sad. You feel bad for them.
Yeah.
When they missed 3rd, it was funny again.
Yeah.
I was in the city that day. I was on the way to a conference for work, and I was listening to the game through, I think it was Flash Score.
Yeah.
And mind you, the commentator that was on that game was horrible. But I heard the words Bosnia go through, Italy are out, Italy are missing a 3rd World Cup, and in the middle of Tumbalong Park, I am pissing myself. So 3 World Cups, it's freaking hilarious, and I'm gonna love it even more if they miss a 4th.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what that happens when that comes time. I think I saw something about UEFA changing their World Cup qualifier system as well, so who knows what that looks like. But
yeah, that's I got thoughts about that as well, but I don't know if we're going to have to go that deep.
We might have to recap that in 3.5 years when they start qualifying for the next one. So June 1st, the World Cup Socceroos squad came out today. I know you have some thoughts on it. You posted your own kind of World Cup squad and who you'd like to see in it. So what was your initial impressions of Tony Popovich's side today?
For what Tony Popovich is like, he's someone who's very set in his ways, doesn't really like to deviate. You kind of know what you're expecting of him going into, I guess, anything. There were a couple of surprises in there, which is what I like. Tete Yengi, after he was dropped from the Mexico game, I actually thought that was going to be it for him, that we weren't going to see him at the World Cup, and we were either going to go with pretty much one striker, or Brandon Brella was going to find his way on a ticket to America. I say that. jovially. Obviously, they were in America already, of course, but I do like that inclusion. I think it may not have been my first pick, but I think the specialty about where the Socceroos are at the moment is obviously we don't have the quality that we had around 2006, 2010. I think our quality is better than what it was, say, 2014. But I can't remember a time where we had so many players on or around the same level, and we had so many players, or the difference between, say, our top player in a position and 4 or 5 spots down the track, the gap between them was so close. It's very, very rare. Usually, especially you look at the golden generation, you had some absolute superstars, but the drop off to the next best players was noticeable, especially when you look kind of outside the squad. Right now, you have a player like Riley McGree who's injured. You've got a luxury of, and I know this is a contentious point, being able to call up someone like Volpato instead. That's a massive positive. Overall, I like it. Backline, very solid. Obviously, Popovich likes to play 5 at the back, which means we've got every man and his dog that plays in some way, shape, or form at the back in there. Jerry may not have been my first pick, but I understand it. I would have liked to have seen maybe 2 options as attacking fullbacks, considering you've got someone like Kai Truan who can slot in as a centre back and as a defensive right back if you need to. Dejanet can do the same thing, so maybe a wasted opportunity there, but knowing how Popovich is going to set up, we're probably not going to use more than one attacking fullback on the right-hand side anyway. Everything else is kind of expected. It was always going to be a toss-up between Beach and Gauchi for that third goalkeeper spot, and look, I'm not going to go and write home about, the third goalkeeper that I wanted didn't get called up. I'm so sad. It's a formality at the end of the day. Ryan and Izzo being there is the important thing. You look at the midfield, Robertson, I think, would have added something to it, but maybe not too much different to what Hrustic does. Look, my personal preference may have been Robertson, but once again, it's apples and oranges. It's not too much difference between them. I, for the life of me, can never understand the hate for Paul O'Connell, so I'm not sure what your thoughts are on him, but I love the kid, and if you want to talk about him later, I can really go into detail about that. Devlin wasn't my first pick either, but God, how can you say no after the season he's had as well? You mentioned the predicted squad that I put, well, not predicted, but my personal squad that I put together at the end of last week. The only reason why I didn't have him included was because I didn't think that taking 6 centre mids would be wise. If you're going to take 6 centre mids, he'd have to be included. He's out of the ones that I had, he's probably the first one that comes in if someone has to miss out, and Yazbek's not available as well, which, look, it hurts our doesn't hurt our chances, sorry, it maybe hurts us a little bit, but when you've got someone like Devlin to call on, Ballard hasn't even been in the mix. He's another quality player that could have stepped in very easy. Robertson got sent home early. There's so much depth there that could come in and still do a job. So that's what I mean. We're in a fortuitous position right now where we've got so many players at a very similar level that we can call upon. And it's only a strength where you have 1 or 2 injuries and suddenly you've got replacements there. The only one that I probably don't like is Boyle missing out, but that may be more sentimental more than anything. Valupale he's not my first choice. He probably isn't my second, third, or fourth either, but I think with his inclusion, especially Tony Popovich being only a year into his Socceroos tenure, maybe a little bit less as well. I might not have got my math completely right. It actually may be more than a year now.
Definitely,
been there for
definitely more than a year.
20 games or something like that. His first major tournament, I don't blame him for taking a player that he feels comfortable with, that he's worked in the past, that can at least be there to understand what he does. So I can understand it. I don't agree with it, but other than that, I can't really complain about the rest of the squad.
And like you kind of said at the start, it was once you kind of you saw the players come in their kind of allotments, European players coming, the A-League players coming all the different times. The squad kind of wrote itself for the most part. Like there was outside of Christian Volpato coming in, without him coming in that last minute, transfer from Italy to Australia, it was kind of, like you said, written in itself. And I think, like you said, it's a very balanced squad. And yes, we have our big players in there, but you also have players that can step up and fill the holes if, an injury or something does happen, which I think is a solid.
Someone that you probably point to in that regard is an A1 Bill. Someone that I don't think he would have been a lot of people's first choice to be able to come into the squad. Only really worked his way back into the Socceroos fold in March. But look, and this is something that probably a more personal belief of mine. If you're playing in the second division in Spain, you're playing at a good level. It's a highly technical competition. It's a tough competition as well. We've called up players from two Bundesliga, from Championship League One in the past. The Segunda in Spain is, I don't know if they still go by that name, but close enough.
Yeah.
That level is a very good level. We've signed players for the A-League from the third and fourth tiers in Spain, and they've come here and done a decent job.
Yeah.
I believe Belgium, actually, now I remember reading somewhere where Belgian Pro League clubs are starting to look at the lower tiers of Spain for players to come in at a good level. You know, you wouldn't say the Belgian Pro League is something to scoff at, and they're still looking at that level for players to scout. So if you've got an Aussie playing in Spain second tier and doing relatively well, they can come in and do a job. Mabill's probably not going to be a starter, but he's been well tested in a tough league. He's someone that can come in and do a job if we need to call upon him.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that kind of points to your point there is that, you know, they may not be playing in the Premier League, La Ligas or stuff, but we have a lot of players that have had a good season in their clubs, whether it's, you know, championships, second tier, stuff like that. And I think that's, for an Australian side, more important that instead of like you have the big names and players that do this, you just have players that are hitting their form and staying in their form throughout the tournament, especially in the early stage with the group games.
Yeah, I think sometimes as Australians we get bogged down on, we don't have players playing at the top level, or we don't have players playing in the biggest clubs in the world, because that's where the golden generation were, and that's kind of the standard that they set. But you know, the golden generation so far in Australia's history has been an anomaly. If that was our standard, that wouldn't be called the golden generation. They'd just be a generation.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're treated in such high regard, and that's because we have never seen something like that before. And it's going to be very difficult for us to see something like that again. The reality is, as long as we've got players playing at a decent level where they're being tested properly week in, week out, and they're getting minutes week in, week out, you know, the inverse is probably for Volpato, where he may not be getting the same minutes as some other players, but obviously he's testing himself in a good environment. But then you look at someone like Riley McGree, he's playing at a step lower, he's playing in the championship, but he's playing, he's getting through 46 games a season, bar his injury concerns, of course. But a fully fit Riley McGree is a top 3 player for a club that was, 30 seconds away from going to extra time in the promotion playoff to get to the Premier League. You're playing at a good level at that point. I understand why we want our players playing for good clubs. It's a sense of national pride. It's something that, you know, we want to see Australians on the biggest stage we can. But if you're talking about the good of the national team, I'd rather a player playing week in, week out for a semi-decent club than someone who's at Liverpool or Man United and sitting on the bench for 40 games out of 46 that they play.
Yeah.
Obviously, the conversation with Volpato is at least he's coming off the bench, but, you know, we've called up players in the past that have been at clubs like that and literally sat in the stands for a full season. So I'd much rather see players getting minutes, and we've got a good group of players that are, one, coming in with confidence, and two, coming in with a lot of minutes under their belt, and minutes in environments where you're playing in heat in this World Cup. And a lot of our players come from areas like that. We've got players that have done well in the A-League. We've got a number of players that have dealt with the American heat so far already. We've got a number of MLS players. So I think we're shaped up okay so far. Once you actually get into the games, it's obviously a different story. It's what's the famous Mike Tyson quote? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we saw kind of rough debut or rough launch of this team yesterday in the Mexico friendly at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Lost 1-0. A lot of, I think it's kind of a 50-50 friendly. It wasn't the best performance in the world. It wasn't the worst. Lots of positive, and I think a lot of, you know, working points. And overall, if you gave me that friendly, you know, 2 weeks out before a World Cup, I think it's a great friendly and a great testing point for the Socceroos squad. What was your thoughts about that game?
Yeah, I remember reading somewhere the whole idea of that friendly. I think the frustrating part is Mexico don't really stack up stylistically to who we are going to play, who we know we're going to play against at least. Maybe they come close to Paraguay, but Paraguay are they're probably a bit more like us, for being honest. It's there are going to be new levels of handball in that Australia-Paraguay game that the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
But you look at a game like Mexico, you're playing at an iconic stadium in front of close to 80,000 people that are all rooting for your demise, essentially. So it's a good setup for the kind of atmosphere we're going to experience in Seattle when we play the USA.
Mm.
And if you can deal with 80,000 Mexicans, I'm sure you can deal with 50,000 Americans.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in that regard. I don't like to read too much into friendlies just purely because that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
I honestly can appreciate the fact that we didn't win this game. I'd actually be more worried for the World Cup if we did.
Mm.
I remember when we went on that, I think it was about a 13-game unbeaten run. I may have my numbers mixed up completely, but we went on a very long unbeaten run. We got done against the US, then we lost against Colombia and Venezuela, and I'm glad we went through that rut because the last thing we need is to go into a tournament overconfident. As much as we can appreciate Australia being in a good position, the last thing that we can do is be cocky, because as much as we're looking at the US and thinking they're the easiest team in pot one, we can get a result against them. We can absolutely get a result against them. But we saw the reactions from the CBS boys that went viral for all the wrong reasons. They're looking at us going, thank the Lord we got Australia. We don't have to play any of the good pot two teams. So everyone's looking at us as like fresh fodder. And the difference that we have in this World Cup is we don't have a major nation that's going to look at us and go, okay, yeah, we can kind of take it easy in this game. Every single team we're going to play against is going to be up for it against us because they're looking at us going, we need these 3 points if we're getting out of the group. And that is probably one of the most dangerous situations we've been in going into a World Cup. So it's not easy by any means. And I'd rather have a game against Mexico where you're struggling a little bit, you're on the back foot, you're not at your best. We saw Moture's open goal miss as well. I'd rather get that out of the way now than have everyone going into the tournament going, yeah, we've been perfect, and then you make a mistake like that when we need a goal. So I'd rather go through the shit now. I'd rather get all that out of the way because at the very least, you're used to that environment now. You know what to expect when we go to Seattle. We know how we're going to act in different situations. We understand what playing in America is like as a team. It's a much better situation for us to be able to go, okay, we need to work for this. Let's make sure by the time the World Cup starts, we've taken ourselves up a gear rather than, oh yeah, we're at the level, let's cruise.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of the talking point of the Socceroos, is that we're not overconfident or, cocky going into this, but there's a little bit of quiet confidence, but I don't think we want to show our cards too early, especially when, like you said, you have the Americans that have shown their cards and are getting belittled, and hopefully we get our revenge in Seattle there.
I'm going to do unspeakable. if we win that game against the US, that's one I've got earmarked. It's a Friday night, Saturday morning, the absolute perfect time a game could be on, because then you got the weekend to recover.
Yeah,
I am so looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm going to end up in the city or if I'm having people over here, but that's not a game I want to watch on my own.
No. So to move into the group, what's your thoughts on the groups? You can do predictions for how you think the Socceroos are going to go, or you can talk about the individual teams. What's your overall thoughts of Group D? I think we were texting when the group draw was happening, and we, the fact we didn't get France or Denmark in the group to start with was amazing to us after the last 2 World Cups. But then to kind of get a group where, you don't have that big heavyweight for say, and you go, okay, there is a good possibility to get out of this group.
Yeah, I was watching it with my wife that day, and I even looked at her, and even she kind of looked at it and went, "Oh, this is okay. This is good for us." So the fact that she could recognise her, I've got to commend her. She's her ball knowledge is steadily improving over the years. She does well. She does well, but yeah, look, honestly, it's one of those ones that I looked at initially. I was like, oh wow, this is brilliant. Like, we're not playing a heavyweight. We have a chance to really make a statement and not go into a group as the underdog, and then you kind of sit on it for a couple of days, and it's like, oh, maybe I kind of want to be the underdog, because now there's expectation. We're talking amongst ourselves like, oh, we can get out of this group, but the conversation still needs to be had. Where, well, what if we don't? What if Turkey come and absolutely obliterate us? What if USA have the tournament that their home crowd is expecting of them? What if Paraguay are actually really good and a lot better than what every single person in Australia seems to be giving them credit for? Paraguay's record is probably one that really goes underestimated. If you look at how they went in World Cup qualifying, they were not necessarily knocking off or obliterating teams and getting all their shock results, but I'm just pulling up now so I can go through it. At home, they beat Brazil, they beat Argentina, they beat Uruguay, big three in South America. You don't do that very easy. There was a stage before we were looking at it from a point of view of, this is who we're actually going to play up against. Even when I was just tracking who's going to qualify for the World Cup, the thing that I was always curious about Paraguay is their games had no goals in them whatsoever. They finished qualifying, they conceded 10 goals, which was the second best defensive record, equal with Argentina. They only scored 14. The only team that had a more, I guess, haram, I say in quotation marks, goal record was Ecuador. They scored 14, only conceded 5. They finished second in their in the Common Ball qualifying. Paraguay are a tough team to break down. They're not easy by any means. They got through qualifying a little bit because they're strong at home, a little bit like Bolivia, where you're playing at altitude. It's hard for teams to visit. But one thing that you can expect with Paraguay, especially considering the fact that a lot of their players are based in America, they're going to be up for the conditions over there. And I think that's something that's been a little bit understated about how this tournament may play out. We saw it with the Club World Cup last year. The sides from America, the Brazilian sides that went over, absolutely brilliant because they could handle playing in the summer in America, and it was a shock to the system for a lot of the Europeans, a lot of European clubs, a lot of the European-based players. And I think it's going to be a similar story this World Cup as well. So Paraguay is not someone that we should be looking at and going, that's a game we will win, that's a game we should be winning. Our record against South American sides sucks as well. And we're going up against a side that they're going to want us to have the ball. So it's going to be almost ping-pong going, okay, you have the ball, no, you have the ball. But it's not going to be easy by any means. You got a Turkey side who are starting to come together now and really be able to step up at major tournaments. Every Euros, you'd almost pick them as like a dark horse per se, and every Euros they disappoint. But they went into 2024, they won the games they needed to win, and they were able to go semi-decent in the tournament, semi-deep into the tournament, and knocked out at the quarterfinals to a generally good Netherlands side. So they're a side that I expect they'll beat the teams that they're expected to beat, but maybe if they come up against a big side, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. But every group game that they have going up against them, they're odds-on favourite to win. And then you got America. It's in any normal circumstance, you'd be like, yeah, we can match it with them. We're at their level. We're playing in America as well. They're going to have a massive home crowd behind them. There's expectations that they're going to go, at the very least, deep into this tournament. Whether they crumble under that expectation or not, I hope they do, because obviously it's going to make our job easier. But there's the very realistic possibility that they actually step up and do really, really well in this tournament. The only thing that gives me solace for that America game is I think when we match up to the two sides stylistically, there's deficiencies in their side that we can expose. I actually think the players that we have going forward are the best match for them to be able to get over the top of them. But saying that, let's just say they struggle in that first game against Paraguay and they need a result against us. Every player is going to be on their game as well. I kind of hope they do well in that Paraguay game to give themselves a false sense of security that we can go over the top of. But it's definitely not easy. It's like we said at the start of the podcast, it's a hope that kills you. And I think that's the thing that worries me so much going into this World Cup. I don't see us going in absolutely obliterating things. I think it's more likely we finish last than finish first. But it's that wide open and that narrow that all we need to do is just really click in a few key moments. And be the side that Popovic's sides tend to be, and just be really, really good defensively. If we can go through the tournament conceding on average at most a goal a game, especially during the group stage, we're putting ourselves in a good position. And that's being generous, I think, going a goal a game. Like, there's a possibility we may need to be even better. But I think if we have that minimum standard, we're going to be okay, because unlike other Socceroos sides in the past, especially the last 10 years, I've actually got confidence that we can get goals out of this team.
Yeah.
Put the Mexico game aside, you look at players like Toure, Kunda, Volpato coming in now as well. Tete Yangi, I'm excited to see what he can bring when he comes off the bench. Ao Mabil. You've got players, and Jordan Boss as well, if you want to throw a left back in there that can get forward well.
Yeah.
We've got players in there that can be exciting going forward. So as long as our defence does their job, we know we're going to get a goal in us. And as long as we have that confidence, I think we'll be okay. I say think. Very key word in there because it's not definitive.
No.
But we can dream, I think. It's a group where we can dream.
Yeah. And I think that's the key wording there. You think we can do well and dream to get out of it.
That's the whole point of the World Cup, I guess. You want to go into it. You want to have faith that, we can go on a run. We can do something. And I think we can. Unfortunately, I tend to be a little bit pessimistic sometimes, but I do have hope that this side can go far. I think we've got a realistic possibility of getting out of the group if things go right for us.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of things going right for us because, unfortunately, we had a good World Cup in 2022. We do very well to have 2 good World Cups.
All right, and then to talk about, probably the most exciting breaking news out of the Socceroos camp, Christian Volpato has joined the squad. Last minute inclusion, wasn't going to play for Socceroos back in December. Was waiting for Italy call up. Italy doesn't qualify. Then on, basically 11:59, he switches allegiance and joins Socceroos. Now, I don't think it's the worst move in the world. I think if we can get a player of his attacking nature in the squad and he can do a job for us, then I will absolutely take him every day of the week. I know some people, question the jumping back and forth. What's your kind of view on his allegiance swap back to Socceroos?
I was working for Front Page Football during the 2022 World Cup, and I remember talking about him back then. Obviously, very different situation. This is an 18-year-old kid that did some questionable things, said some questionable things at the time. And I had to go back and re-listen to what I said at the time because I had a feeling I may need to retract some things that I said back in the day when I was younger myself as well. I was saying that I was 22, so I have half a brain. You should have half a brain by then, of course. But my position on him probably hasn't changed too much. At the time, it was a matter of if this is a kid that's kind of mulling over and almost in tears because he doesn't know what to do, then frankly he doesn't have the maturity to play senior international football anyway. He was 18 at the time. I don't blame a young kid for being confused in their decision. He's 22 now. He's got to decide what he wants to do with his life. And I'm glad he's come to a decision and made it. I understand people feeling passionate in their opinion on how things have transpired for him, especially as Australians. We're very protective of our culture. We're very protective of our, I guess, national people, teams, however you want to kind of word it. But as you said, he's a quality player. He's someone that, on face value, you don't really turn away. I think the question you'd ask yourself is he one of our 26 best players? The answer, I think, very easily is yes. I'd argue he's one of our best 11. I'd argue he should be a starting player for us. It's then a matter of, do you let what's happened in the past override everything about him, his ability, what he can bring to the team? For some people, it's a yes. And to those people, I'm not going to argue because I completely understand where you're coming from. But we're talking about a national team. We're talking about being successful on the world stage. To do that, you need to have the best players that are available to you at your disposal. And when you look at it that way, it's hard to say no to someone like Volpato. I do wish things were smoother, and I know watching how this has all unfolded over the last 4 years, it hasn't been easy for him considering everything that's happened at club level. I believe he was close to playing for the Socceroos a couple of years ago, and then he had coaches tell him, if you go to Australia, we may need to rethink your spot in our team. So that obviously puts a hold on things as well. I'm glad it's ended, and I can only be thankful that it's ended with him playing for us, really. It's an unfortunate situation, but it's one that I guess we are the benefactors of, and a lot of ill feeling will go away if he scores a winner against America.
Oh, absolutely. It's always the way with football. You can reduce all the talk and negativity if you just go out there and do what you can. Now, I can't personally account for watching his minutes, but everything I've heard from reading and listening has been positive. I looked at a front three of, say, Irakunda, Toure, and Volpato, and I'm like, that is a quality front three, and probably a front three we haven't taken to a World Cup with that much quality in last few years, kind of thing. We've always taken more experienced strikers, so the fact that we have young strikers does excite me as a football fan as well. And, you know, gives me confidence against teams where, you know, and especially with Popovic, we're going to be sitting at the back and relying on those counter attack and breaks, and you having those quick, strong strikers up the top will help us with the style of play that Popovic wants to play.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's it'd be interesting. I guess say you had every single one of those players available at your disposal. It's almost a matter of how you'd be overawed with trying to how do you fit everyone in, because you had someone like McGree to the conversation as well.
Yeah.
No, you're almost left in too good a position. But either way, you'd rather have that than the inverse where you're trying to work out who you're going to take to a World Cup in terms of who can do the job. It's not exactly an easy situation. It's tough one for Popovic to be in, but you'd rather have more quality at your disposal than the inverse. Even if you look at it now with Volpato included, our front three was more than likely going to be Irakunda, Toure, McGree, which is really good. McGree out, Volpato in, that's great, but imagine we had both of them, because at the very least, let's say try to squeeze them in, at least you're calling one off the bench as well. If you're struggling in a game, you need something a bit different.
And that's the other thing as well. I think just having that bench power as well, and, you know, having someone to come off the bench and jab one if we need one is also a crucial thing in a World Cup.
And I think we do have a decent bench as well.
Yeah.
You look at someone like Tete Engi, we haven't really seen him yet.
No.
But he's someone who I think can bring a lot of quality to this team. And personally, I was looking at someone like Mitch Duke to come in, but my reasons for having Mitch Duke in there were very, very similar to Popovic's reasonings for having Tete Engi. So that big presence up front, someone that, you know, has a knack for finishing, knack for being in the right spot, but also just an imposing figure that can really drive a side, offer that press up front as well. There's a lot that comes out of Yengi. Duke offers a bit more experience. He's another player that's been to a World Cup. He can help some of the younger ones come through, because we do have a really, really young forward line now too. The only experience there really is Mabil, but last time Mabil went to the World Cup, he was a bit part player.
Yeah.
So having someone like Duke there probably would have been okay, but I don't see much difference to what Duke would offer that Yankee does now too. So you can take solace in the fact that someone is there to do the job.
Exactly. Now, final two questions, and it's kind of, you know, the age-old predictions that always bite people on the back ends, because in terms of Socceroos first, in terms of a pass, fail, and exceeding marks, if we look at it that way, I think we can both agree failure would be not getting out of the group.
I think failure would be coming last in this group. I think there could be a lot of forgiveness offered. Maybe not a lot, but there's an argument that you could offer forgiveness if we come third and we just don't make it out, say, on goal difference compared to someone else in a group with, say, Cabo Verde. And they go and smack them 7-0, and that's the reason why we're not getting out. I think that you can understand it. Maybe you're still looking at it as a fail, but definitely, if we come last, you know, Popovich is probably paying with his job.
Yeah. The only reason I would say not getting out is a fail compared to third is because you got the 8 best third place teams make it out of the group stages. So I'm like, surely we have enough to at least be one of those thirds.
By the same token, you got some groups that have teams much worse than what we're facing. We can maybe rack up a goal difference against.
That's the thing I've looked into. Like, say if we finish first, we get the third place team out of Group B, E, F, I, and J. One of those options could be you face the third best team out of Group I, and that possibly is a Senegal or a Norway, and
or Iraq.
Yeah, or you go to Group F and into Japan or Sweden. So that's the thing. The third place is definitely.
My hot take is Japan win that group. Actually, that's one. I'm not sure how the tournament's going to play out, but that's one thing I'm backing.
Okay. There you go. But still, like, there's still that high caliber of teams in that.
Which means if we're playing a third place team, it's Netherlands or Sweden, and they're not exactly easier prospects.
No, exactly. So, okay then, if we say fail is to finish last.
Yeah.
What would you get?
Definitely. If we finish last, like I said, Popovich pays a good job.
What would you say is a pass for the Socceroos?
For us to turn around and say it's an acceptable tournament, get out of the group, round of 32. I think some people may even say round of 16 is a pass, depending on who we're playing in the round of 32.
Yeah.
Because depending on how the group stage goes, there's a possibility if we come third, we play France right off the bat. And I don't think many people are expecting us to beat France. I'd say round of 30. For me, round of 32 is, what we've gone there, we've done the job, we've done what's expected of us.
Yeah.
Round of 32, I'd say it's the pass.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing. I looked into like what our options are. You finish first, and you have a whole range of teams that finish third. You finish third ourselves. There's a whole mechanism of who we could play. Second place is Belgium, Iran, Egypt, and New Zealand. So
I think if we're playing any of them, maybe bar Belgium. It's no different to playing a Turkey or USA.
Yeah, that's the thing. You wouldn't feel overconfident, but you just
if we didn't get past one of those.
Exactly. Okay, then, so we say make it out of the group, round 32 is pass. I'm the same there with you. If we get out of the group, I'm happy. Exceeding, what would you say? Would you say round of 16, or would you say anything beyond that? Like,
I'd say round of 16. Like I said, it depends on who we play in the round of 32.
Yeah.
What I think, one of the things that annoys me with Australia and our history at the World Cup is we've had good wins. If you think about the games we've won at the World Cup, we've beaten Japan in 06. We beat Serbia in 2010. Then we beat Tunisia and Denmark at the last World Cup.
Yeah.
Take Saudi Arabia, for example. They look at their history in the World Cup, and they haven't really done much at World Cups before. But they can turn around and say they've beaten Argentina.
Yeah.
And they've beaten an Argentina side that won the World Cup. We haven't had a moment like that where we've really stepped up on a world stage and beaten a big team and a good team. I think Serbia, like you look at the teams that we have beaten. Japan were a good side when we played them. There was a guy that played for them whose name escapes me that was quite a high quality player back in the day. And I'm not going to try and guess the name because that's probably going to end up being inappropriate.
Yeah.
But we beat a Japan side that came last in the group.
Yeah.
Serbia had good players. We beat a Serbian side that.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, fun fact I learnt the other day about that Serbian team. Guess who was their one of their number 10s for that Serbian team that day?
It was Nikovic.
Yep.
Yeah. But Nikovic we played against Nikovic at the World Cup. It's funny because he was meant to go to the six-a-side World Cup with Australia. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
They asked him for the team, but he didn't end up coming to fruition.
That's it. It would
have been really cool to see him in an Australian jersey.
I watched that highlights back the other day just of that game, and I saw like Ninkovic in the back, and I'm like, is that who I think it was? And I was like, yeah, there you go.
Jump scare, eh?
Literally. I was like,
he's a fully played jolly Aussie now.
Yeah, well, literally.
It's funny how football works sometimes. But we beat that Serbian side. They had a decent side that tournament as well. But once again, side that finished bottom of the group. We beat the Tunisia side. Tunisia is probably the best performing side that we've beaten at a World Cup. They were unlucky not to go through. They had 6 points. It was just 4 points. Sorry, they just missed out on
beat France.
The fact that we
drew
managed
France.
to beat Denmark.
Yeah,
but once again, it was a side that couldn't get out of their group.
Yeah.
Then we beat a Denmark side who probably the highest profile side we've beaten.
Yeah,
but it was a Denmark side that was absolutely honking at that tournament. We haven't had a win at a World Cup unless I've missed something completely. I'm going through our previous tournaments trying to think who we've beaten. And it does feel a bit weird that we have only won 4 games. I'm worried I've missed something in there. But we haven't beaten a big, high-performing team before. And I would love to have that moment. I look at the USA game and I think if we win that game, that's our moment on the world stage. As much as USA isn't in Argentina or something like that, but to beat a host nation, to beat a nation so well versed in sport like the US in their World Cup, in their backyard, that's a moment that when people think of Australia at the World Cup, that's the first thing that they would think of. It's different to say, oh yeah, they got out of the group that one time, but you didn't really beat anyone like majorly notable. Or, oh yeah, they went on that run in 06 when they had Kul Viduka, all that, but we went through on a draw to Croatia. We beat Japan. Like, we kind of did what was expected of us in that tournament. To beat the US on home soil would be, people look at that and go, They beat the Yanks.
Yeah.
They beat the Yanks in their backyard. Let's just say it forces them out of the group stage as well. Like, they can't come back from it. That's Australia's moment on the world stage. Or if we do go a little bit deeper in the tournament, say we get a France in the round 32 and we knock them out of the World Cup. I want a moment like that for Australia. I think that's something that's missing in our history.
Yeah.
We've done it at Confederations Cups, but I don't think anyone overly cares about them, which is sad because I quite enjoyed that tournament. But I think if you're talking about what would be my dream and what would be exceeding expectations, it would be for us to very simply have a moment like that where it's not just us achieving something by getting out of the group. It's that we've got a result that people look at and go, wow, look at what Australia just did. That would be massive for me. I wouldn't even care how far we go into the tournament after something like that. It would be that and that alone. That would be fantastic.
And that's it. I've said to people, we could bomb out of the group stage with all due respect, but if we beat America and we bomb out, I'd be happy. I'm like, successful tournament.
Even if we go out of the group stage and we beat the US, I consider that a pass.
Yep. That can be
maybe not when it actually happens, but
no. It can be
theory, yes.
Yeah. It could be a funny thing we can look back on.
At the 2022 World Cup, we got that early goal against France through Craig Goodwin.
Yep.
I literally turned to my dad and I said, we could lose this game 4-1 and I wouldn't care.
Yep.
And then we lost 4-1 and best believe I cared.
Yeah, but that's the thing. All we remember now is that Craig Goodwin goal and where we were, and yeah, happy days.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was on the bogger.
Well, I was in New York, so I was like, you remember where you are for those moments.
Better time than I was.
Now, final question. Got to do it. If you're going to do a World Cup preview, got to predict the winner. We've talked about this off air, but who's your winner?
And I've been mulling over this for about 3 months, and every time I do it, I end up with someone different. I'm in a tie between. There's a few teams that I think could do it. I think France have something about them. Spain has something about them. Portugal, Germany, England, Brazil, all have something about them. They're probably someone in that circle I think will be who wins it.
Yeah. If
I'm put on the spot, and this could very well change between now and when the tournament actually starts, if I'm backing anyone right now, I'm going to say Portugal.
Yeah, okay.
Purely because I think they've got the most balanced squad going into the tournament. And there may be something about them in the terms of we want to do it for Ronaldo. I don't think Ronaldo will be a central figure for them in their run.
Yeah.
But I think Portugal have enough across the entirety of their squad to go, we can go deep here. We can do something. We may be able to win it.
Yeah.
So right now I'm saying Portugal. It could change, but they're the one that I seem to land on the most.
That's Ian. I'm kind of in the same. I'm like Spain because, I think I only pick Spain because of what they've done historically. Won the Euros 2 years ago, have won a World Cup. Portugal have never been there. Like, yes, they've won the Euros and the Nations League, if you count that. But that's the only reason I possibly overlook Portugal. But I agree with you. You look at that team and there is a solid basis and solid argument for them to.
I don't blame you for overlooking Portugal as well, because I think there's just as many arguments against them as there is for them.
Yeah, the balance of Ronaldo and all their up and coming talent, but you never know, and especially with a 48-team World Cup first ever, you just never know what could happen.
You can get on a very good run as well. It's going to be, if France and Germany both win their group, they come face to face at the round of 16.
Yeah.
So you're talking 3 knockout games after that without one of those sides. There's possibility to go on a very lucky run and find yourself 2 games away from a grand final.
Yeah, I think
it's a fortunate position to be in. I think Portugal may have a simple run, although I think if Argentina do turn up, they'll play against each other.
Yeah.
And how good would that be for the people that are chronically online, Messi and Ronaldo facing each other in a World Cup?
Yeah.
But I think Argentina don't make it past the round of 32, and that's my hot take for the World Cup.
There you go. I think it's very much the World Cup of underdogs. It's just, who you never know, but we get to all live and enjoy it in just 12-day time. Even closer when this podcast comes out in 10 days. It'll be 10 days time by then. But nevertheless, it's going to be exciting. Hopefully the Socceroos can do well, and just have good performances and hopefully get out of the group.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
It's the hope that kills you.
That's the thing. We'll start the interview as the same way we'll end the interview the same way we started. So hope that kills you, but the hope is there. Cody, thank you very much for joining on today. Appreciate all your thoughts and opinions on the World Cup, and I'm sure we'll be chatting throughout the World Cup.
Of course, man. Appreciate you having me on. It's been, like I said, it's been a minute since I've done something like this, but yeah, it's always good to get out and talk footy. It's it's a love. It's what kind of I won't say it's what drives us, but it's it keeps life interesting being able to get involved in stuff like this. It's nice, and the World Cup's going to be a lot of fun, hopefully.
So that will wrap up our May/June episode here on Tier 2 Talk. Obviously, the World Cup is starting in just 10 days' time, so it's super exciting time to be a football fan. Hopefully, Australia can do well in this tournament. Like we said, it's the hope that kills you, but the hope is there and the belief is there that the Socceroos can do well in this tournament. Make sure you tune in to our Instagram and Twitter for continuous updates and coverage of the World Cup as we take that turn away from MPL action and into the world's game and what is happening with the Socceroos. Though we will be keeping eyes on the MPL, and if anything is breaking, you will find it first here on Tier 2 Talk, your reliable news source for anything Australia Championship related. Like I said, follow Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, all those good things, all the things you guys know to do. Thank you again for Cody for joining on to the episode. Really appreciate that. Month, enjoy the World Cup, enjoy all the football. Hopefully the Socceroos can get up and win a few games, especially that USA game. But yes, hopefully it will be a fantastic month of football with the World Cup taking place in USA, Mexico, and Canada. And until then, I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.